covering biodiversity conservation and environmental issues together in one session. Briefly, I will run through how to access revision notes and test in clay6.com. Open clay6.com page, click on practice. So you will come to, you will see a lot of packages and you can select the package you want. Since it's a NEET class, I'm going to select NEET Premium. And here you find a lot of chapter-wise tests in physics, chemistry, biology, and NEET full-term tests. Since we are doing with biology 12th, let me open this. Now you see a lot of colored bubbles. Each bubble represents a test. A green bubble represents that you have already taken the test and completed it. But if you want to practice again, you can take it and visit the test any number of times. A blue bubble indicates that a test is yet to be completed and you have not done it still. Now, yellow bubble indicates that the test is incomplete. Sometimes what happens, you might have started the test and after seeing 3 or 4 questions, you would have realized that you are not thorough with the concepts. And then you might end the test. And then again, when you want to come back after learning the concepts, this yellow bubble indicates that you had to take this test and complete it. Now, if you look at each and every chapter, there are a lot of tests that are and all this are based on its importance in the NEET exam and also the complexity of the textbook. And once you have completed all the lower levels of the test, you can click on the red bar button, which is a randomized test. And this red bar randomized test will help you to analyze your strengths and weaknesses. It will help you to analyze whether you are able to recall, whether you are able to apply the concept. Now, there is another one button on revision notes. If you click this, it will open into a PDF file. So I hope you have got to know how to navigate to the website. In today's class, I will be revising key concepts, do a practice test based on concepts learned, and last 5 minutes I will answer your queries. Now, before we begin into the actual lesson, I'm sure you all are going to take up NEET and you would be thinking what kind of questions, especially in biology, is it going to feature? Because biology constitutes the major portion of your NEET exams, and everybody says that NCERT is the what kind of questions and how are we going to prepare. Now, basically, with our analysis of the old papers, we have analyzed that there are 3 kinds of questions. One is straight from NCERT textbook. About 68 to 70 questions are asked straight from NCERT textbooks, and you should be able to answer it if you have thoroughly processed the textbook. Second type of question will be from past papers. Around 8 to 10 questions will be directly asked from past papers with little modification or no modification. If you have solved past papers thoroughly and you're thorough with the answers, then it's a cakewalk for you. And finally, the last 8 to 10 questions will be the new questions, which would not have featured in any of the NEET exams, and these become changers. You can answer them only if you understand the concept and you know how to apply the concept. By mere mugging of the concepts, you will not be able to solve these problems. Now, taking in view all these things to help you, we tutors at Clay6 have created the tests in such a way it's so that you will be able to score very high through our practice package. And so I would suggest you to take this package. Now let us get into the revision notes. So as I said, this is a PDF and you know you had to go through 10 books before you get into if you have to revise. So to minimize that time, and time is an important factor, we have created a PDF which is just about 135 pages with all the key points being put for you from NEET point of view. And additionally also through this lecture, we are providing some of the points for you in the form of the slides. Now let us get back to the lesson. Biodiversity and conservation. The term biodiversity was popularized by the social biologist Edward Wilson. Biodiversity is the heterogeneity existing at different levels of biological organization in a biosphere. Now, if you look at biodiversity, there are 3 levels of biodiversity. One is the genetic diversity. It is the diversity in the number and types of genes as well as chromosomes present in different species and the variations in the genes and their alleles in the same species. For example, if you take genetic variation in the medicinal plant Rauwolfia ometeria, which grows in different Himalayan ranges, the changes occur in terms of potency and concentration of find the alkaloid. India has more than 50,000 genetically different strains of rice and 1,000 varieties of mango. Species diversity is the variety of species within a region. It indicates the species richness in any habitat. For example, if you look, the Western Ghats have a greater amphibian species diversity than the Eastern Ghats. And last is ecological diversity. The diversity at the ecosystem level is known as ecological diversity. Diversity at the level of community and ecosystem has three perspectives. So these are called as the alpha, beta, and gamma diversity. Now, alpha diversity is intra-community diversity or within the community diversity, and it is also called local diversity, and it is the diversity within the community. Now, beta diversity is the diversity between two communities. That means to say it is an inter-community diversity, and gamma diversity is the regional diversity, which represents the total richness of species in all the habitats found within a region, geographical area, or a landscape. Now, let us look at the biodiversity of India. So if you look at the biodiversity of India, now more than as I said, it in India, if you look at it, the scientific estimation of total number of species at the global level as made by Robert Meyer is about 7 million. More than 70% of all the species recorded are animals, while plants including algae, fungi, bryophytes, gymnosperms and angiosperms comprise no more than 22% of the total. Among animals, if you see, insects are the most rich species of the taxonomic group, making up 70% of the total. Fungi species in the world are more than the combined total of the species of fishes, amphibians, reptiles, and mammals. And India shares 8.1% of the global species diversity, and it makes India one of the 12 mega diversity countries of the world. Nearly 45,000 species of plants and twice as many of animals have been recorded from India. There are probably more than 1 lakh plant species and more than 3 lakh animal species yet to be discovered and described. Now let us look at the patterns of biodiversity. Species diversity will decrease as we move from the equator towards the poles. Generally, if you look at tropics, which range from 23.5 degree north latitude to 23.5 degree south latitude, harbor more species than temperate or polar areas. Colombia, which is located near the equator, has nearly 1,400 species of birds, whereas New York at 41 degree north has 105 species, and Greenland at 71 degree north has only 56 species. So this example clearly illustrates that as we move away from the equator towards the poles, the species diversity starts decreasing. India, with much of its land area in the tropical latitudes, has more than 1,200 species of the birds, and total tropical American rainforest in South America has the greatest biodiversity on the earth. So this can be a question which has got means it is the tropical Amazonian rainforest that is in the South America has the greatest biodiversity. Now let us look into species area relationship. German naturalist and geographer Alexander von Humboldt observed that within a region, species richness increased with increase in explored area, but only up to a limit. The relationship between species richness and area for a wide variety of taxa like angiosperms, plants, birds, bats, freshwater fishes turns out to be a rectangular hyperbola. On a logarithmic scale, the relationship is a straight line described by the equation log S is equal to log C plus Z log A, where S stands for species richness, A stands for the area, and Z stands for the slope of the line, and C is equal to Y intercept. Value of Z lines in the range of zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.2, regardless of the taxonomic group or the region. Species area relationship among very large areas like the entire continents has much steeper slope of the value, wherein the Z values will lie in the range of 0.06 to 1.2. Now let us look at what are the reasons for biodiversity. The main reasons for more diversity in tropics than temperate region are species formation or speciation, is a part of evolution. Unlike temperate regions subjected to frequent glaciation for much time period in the past, tropics remained relatively undisturbed for millions of years and had a long evolutionary time for species diversification. Tropical environments are less seasonal, relatively more constant and predictable, which promotes niche specialization, leading to greater species diversity. And there is more solar energy available in the tropics, which contributes to the higher productivity and in turn greater diversity. Now, biodiversity conservation. Conservation is the most efficient and most beneficial utilization of the natural resources. Conservation of biodiversity is protection and scientific management of biodiversity so as to maintain it at its optimum level and derive sustainable benefits for the present as well as for future generations. Now, the reasons why do we think we need to uh, what are the reasons for conserving the biodiversity? That it can be grouped into three categories: narrowly utilitarian reasons, broadly utilitarian, and ethical reasons. Now, narrowly utilitarian reason states that human beings derive a number of economic benefits like food, fiber, firewood, industrial, and medicinal products. So, this becomes a narrow utilitarian reason. So, we are getting the resources from the biodiversity, so we need to conserve them. Broadly utilitarian reasons could be that biodiversity plays a major role in providing ecosystem services which cannot be given a price tag. And they are like production of oxygen, pollination of flowers without which fruits or seeds are not produced, aesthetic pleasures like bird watching, watching spring flowers, etc. See, if you look at these things now, oxygen, if you just look at it, the way the oxygen cylinders have become so expensive, and people now due to this COVID scenario are put into ventilators. There you had to pay so much to get the treatment. Now the same thing the nature gives to you free of cost, for which we do not have any value, and we indiscriminately cut down the trees. So the broadly utilitarian values means there are many benefits which we get for which no price tag can be attached to it, and hence we need to protect the biodiversity. Ethical reasons: every species has got an intrinsic value, even it is of no economic value to us. So whether the organism is useful to us or not useful to us, it is immaterial. Since it has been created by nature, it is present in nature, it has to be protected, and its protection and conservation is our right. So it is like a dharma, we are supposed to do it. So these are the three reasons for conserving the biodiversity. Now, what are the laws for reasons for biodiversity? Biodiversity, you have seen, has been declining rapidly. The colonization of tropical Pacific islands by humans is said to have led to the extinction of more than 2,000 species of native birds. So wherever man enters, there is a sure destruction. There is no conservation at all. IUCN, that is International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, Red List in 2004 documented that extinction of 784 species, including 338 vertebrates, 359 invertebrates, and 87 plants in the last 500 years. Now, if you look at dodo in Mauritius, quagga in Africa, thylacine in Australia, or Steelers sea cow in Russia, and three subspecies of tiger, namely Bali tiger, Java tiger, and Caspian tiger, are the examples of recent extinction. And about 27 species have been extincted during last 20 years. Some groups like amphibians appear to be more vulnerable to extinction. So what is it that is the causing this kind of loss in biodiversity? We can summarize that as evil quartet. That is, there are four major reasons. That's why we call it as evil quartet: habitat loss and fragmentation. Now, it's the main cause of biodiversity loss. Biodiversity in tropical rainforest and Amazon rainforest, the lung of the earth, the planet is Amazon rainforest, are being lost due to habitat loss and fragmentation. When large habitats are broken into small fragments due to various human activities, mammals and birds requiring large territories and certain animals with migratory habitats are badly affected in the process, leading to their decline in the population. Now, over exploitation. If you look at many species are becoming extinct due to over exploitation by humans. For example, if you see Stella's cow and passenger pigeon have become extinct due to over exploitation by humans. Alien species invasion. That means to say when we are trying to introduce a new species into a different or a newer habitat, it becomes more invasive, resulting in the extinction of the ones that are already present. For example, Nile perch introduced into Lake Victoria in the East Africa caused more than 200 species of cichlid fish to become extinct. Recently, illegal introduction of the African catfish, that is Clarias garipinus, for aquaculture purposes is posing a threat to the indigenous catfishes in Indian rivers. Carrot grass, that is Parthenium, lantana, and water hyacinth are the exotic or alien species which are posing threat to the native species. See, in fact, water hyacinth was introduced thinking, which is known as terror of Bengal. People were very happy looking at its showy leaves. And when they introduced it, has become a weed and it is leading to eutrophication of the water bodies and killing the water body itself. Now, if you look at Parthenium, Parthenium came in when along with the wheat as a weed, and then you know how dangerous it is. It causes a lot of pollen allergy and which creates skin irritations and skin problems in many of the people who have allergy to pollen of Parthenium. Now, the co-extinctions. The extinction of a species may affect the associated plant, animal, and parasites that are co-evolved as plant pollinator mutualism. So, example, when a host fish species becomes extinct, its assemblage of parasites also become extinct. So, these are known as the evil quartet. So, if we just once again summarize, one is habitat loss and fragmentation, over exploitation by human beings, alien species invasion, and co-extinctions are the reasons for the biodiversity loss. Now, importance of biodiversity. Ecologists believe that communities with more species tend to be more stable than those with less species. A stable community will show the following attributes. It shall not show too much variations in the year-to-year productivity. It must be either resistant or resilient to seasonal disturbances. It must be resistant also to invasion by alien species. So these are the three attributes that will make a community to become stable. The species richness and diversity are essential for ecosystem health as well as survival of human race on the earth. Now, let us look into, you must have heard about a red book. So you must have heard about red book. So a red book or a red list is a catalog of taxa facing risk of extinction. International Union of Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources maintains it. And in India, if you look at it for the plant species, Botanical Survey of India prepares the list. Red Book data, a red list was initiated in 1963. Its purpose is to provide awareness to the degree of threat to biodiversity, provide global index about already decline of biodiversity, identification and documentation of species which are at high risk of extinction, preparing conservation priorities, and help in conservation action. Now, if you look at it, according to Mason and Stewart, they identified these categories, and this is what these categories are very important. You should know the meaning of it. Now, if you look at IUCN, was earlier known as International Union for Conservation and Natural Resources. Now it has been renamed as World Conservation Union or WCU. Now WCU as its headquarters in Morgan in Switzerland. Now let us learn the important terms that are important from the point of your examination. Extinct. A taxon is extinct when there is no reasonable doubt that its life cycle is over. last individual has died, extinct in the wild. Taxon is extinct in the wild when it is only to population well outside the pasture. In the wild in the immediate future. Endangered. A taxon is endangered when it is not critically endangered but facing a high risk of extinction in the wild in the near future. Is estimated to number less than 250 mature individuals. Example, blue whale, largest lemur, that is idri. Vulnerable. A taxon is vulnerable when it is not critically endangered or endangered but is facing a high risk of extinction in the wild in the medium term future. That is example Madagascar frog, blackbuck, etc. Conservation dependent. Taxa that do not currently qualify as critically endangered or vulnerable but may be classified as conservation dependent. That means it requires to be conserved. Low risk. A taxon is at low risk when it is being evaluated and does not qualify for any of the categories. In India, we have that number as 109 animals and 73 plants. Data deficient. A taxon is data deficient when there is inadequate information to make a direct or indirect assessment of its risk of extinction based on its distribution or population status and non-evaluated. A taxon is under the category assessed against any criteria. Yeah, so these are some of the important things you have to know of these terms. Now let us look at the wildlife. Now before that, wildlife, it is natural habitat. It's natural habitat. Wildlife includes all plants, animals, and microorganisms other than the cultivated plants and domesticated animals. Wildlife Week is celebrated between October 1st to 7th, or it is the first week of October, to create awareness in the public about the wildlife. Now, 6 values of wildlife you should know are: they are for commercial purpose, recreational, biological, aesthetic, scientific, and social. Wildlife Institute of India is situated in Dehradun. Now let us look at the important wildlife projects in India. That is Project Tiger, that is also known as Tiger Project. It was started in 1973 in order to check depletion in population of the tiger. Initially, it was undertaken in 17 national parks, but recently the project has been extended to more national parks. Now, Project Lion, this was started in 1972. It is located in Gir National Park, Junagadh, Gujarat. Snow Leopard Project throughout the Himalayas. Example, Kanchenjunga National Park, Gangtok. Musk Deer Project, Kedarnath Sanctuary in Uttarakhand, Manali Sanctuary in Himachal Pradesh, and Shikari Devi Sanctuary in Himachal Pradesh. This project is on. Project Elephant was launched in 1992 and it covers both wild and domestic elephants. So these are some of the things which you had to know, and you had to know these are the important dates because they have asked in the entrance examination. 4th October is a World Habitat Day, 3rd October is World Animal Day, 5th June is World Environment Day, 21st March is World Forestry Day, 29th December is Biological Diversity Day, 14th January is Animal Welfare Fortnight, first week of October starting from Monday. Whenever it is the Monday, that week will be considered to be the first week, and for 7 days, that week will be celebrated as Wildlife Week. So please make a note of these important dates. I'll give you some time. Sorry. Now let us look into the different modes of conservation that is seen. So what are the Convention on Biological Diversity? It's an international legally binding treaty, and it has got three important goals. That is conservation of biodiversity, sustainable utilization of the benefits from biodiversity, fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from the genetic resources. And this convention was opened for signature at Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro on 5th June 1992, and then it came into force on 29th December 1993. The World Summit on Sustainable Development was held in 2002 in Johannesburg, South Africa. Under 1990 signed commitment to achieve a significant reduction in the current rate of biodiversity loss at global, regional, and local levels by 2010. In accordance with the conservation strategies recommended by World Convention of Conservationists, wildlife conservation can be ex situ or in situ. Now let us look at the conservation strategies. In situ conservation and protection of the whole ecosystem and its biodiversity at all levels. In order to protect the threatened species, endangered species are protected in natural conditions. First is sacred groves. Now there are tracts in the forest that are set aside, and all the trees and wildlife within it are considered to be equal to gods and goddesses, and they are given total protection. And if you look in some forests in Khansi and Meghalaya and Aravalli Hills of Rajasthan, the tribals, they manage the sacred groves. Hotspots are the areas with high density of biodiversity or megadiversity. So this is actually the original definition of hotspot. Now if we look at hotspots, it is the COVID, where the number of COVID patients are more, that has become the hotspot of today. Now example, out of 34 hotspots in the world, 3 occur in India, that is in Western Ghats and Sri Lanka, Indo-Burma and Himalayas. Protected areas are ecological or biogeographical areas where biological diversity with natural and cultural resources are protected. Examples could be national parks, sanctuaries, and biosphere reserves. So one thing you have to know about biosphere reserves means important biosphere reserves in India. This you had to make a list of it. Gulf of Mannar, Sundarban, Nanda Devi, Nilagiri, Dehang Debang, Panchmari, Simlipal, Achna Kamar or Amarth Kanchenjunga, Agastya Malai, Great Nicobar, Nokrek, Dibru Saikhowa. So these are the biosphere reserves in India. So you had to learn about all these things also, and sometimes they will ask you where is where. That should be your trivia questions where you should know based on your general knowledge. Now let us look into ex situ conservation. Conservation and protection of selected rare plants or animals in places outside their natural homes. Off-site collections of wild and domesticated species that are kept in botanical gardens or zoological parks. Gene banks are the places where stocks of viable seeds, live growing plants, tissue culture, and frozen germplasm with whole range of genetic variability is stored and preserved. Cryopreservation is preservation of seeds or embryos at minus 196 degrees Celsius in liquid nitrogen. Now, national parks are the areas reserved for wildlife where they are able to obtain all the required natural resources and their habitats are well protected. In India, we have 89 national parks at present. Sanctuaries are tracts of land with or without a lake where animals are protected from all types of and habitat. India has 492 sanctuaries at present. And your reserves, large areas of protected land with multiple use, preserving the genetic diversity of the representative ecosystem by protecting the wildlife, traditional lifestyles of the tribals, and varied plant and animal genetic resources. Now, India has 14 biosphere reserves that I have already given you. Now, endemic species. The definition for endemic species is the species which is specific to a particular region and it is not found anywhere else. Exotic or alien species, new species which enter a geographical area. Now the last part is bioprospecting. that is exploration of molecular, genetic, and species level diversity for products of economic importance. So this is the concepts we are supposed to cover in this lesson, which is very important. As I said, you should know the names of some of the important zoos, sanctuaries, and national parks, and the state where they are there, and which animal is protected in those states, in those national sanctuaries. All this list you need to prepare so that questions can be asked from them also. Now let us look into environmental issues. Environmental issues, it's such a huge topic. It can go on, and most of the questions sometimes may be based from the text, but many a times it is based on the recent happening. So you should have a tab on the things that are happening around you environmentally, so that you are able to attack those questions in the examination. Now let us look. The main issue would be pollution. Rapidly growing population along with a move towards urbanization and industrialization has placed significant pressure of India's infrastructure and its natural resources. Now we can see many environmental issues around us which cause undesirable changes in the physical, chemical, or biological characteristics of air, land, and water that will harmfully affect the human life. This undesirable change in physical, chemical, and biological characteristics of air and water and soil is what we call it as pollution. Now, pollutant is a chemical or a substance which can be of geochemical origin or a biological origin that deteriorates our natural environment. Now, pollutants can be broadly classified into non-biodegradable pollutants. Now, non-biodegradable pollutants such as metals, mercury salts, DDT, etc., either do not degrade or degrade extremely slowly in the natural environment. Biodegradable pollutants are rapidly decomposed by the natural process or by some artificial systems that can enhance nature's great capacity to decompose and recycle. So yesterday we saw how decomposition process takes place in the soil. So like this, the decomposition takes place even naturally. Now let us look at important pollution. One is air pollution. It is the release of any form of metal or gas which are harmful station or building into the atmosphere. So any unwanted thing that is getting into the atmosphere which is not needed by the organisms is known as air pollutant. Now let us look at air pollutants. So what are the different air pollutants? So one is the waste recovery. That is the source would be scrap metals and plants. The plants rendering the metals. Now pollutants released will be smoke, odorous metal fumes, soot, etc. Miscellaneous sources would be chemical plants, petroleum refineries, cement factories, paper mills, fertilizer factories, and glass manufacturing industries. Now, pollutants could be hydrogen sulfide, sulfur dioxide, fluorides, organic vapors, and dust. Then transportation, that is automobile combustion sources. Now, they can release a lot of pollutants like aerosols, smoke, lead, extraction, ink, and solvent cleaning. So these the source would be furniture appliances, drying or drying. They hydrocarbons and vapors are can be eaten, crop spraying, burning of fossil fuels, ore preparation, metallurgical plants, and burning of plastics and its processing. So if you look at it, they all release pollutants like organophosphates, chlorinated hydrocarbons, lead, arsenic, or nitrogen oxides, oxides of carbon dioxide, like carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and beryllium dust, and so on. So all these things are going to really affect the life. As a result of which, what is going to happen, you know very well how acid rain is caused. So these oxides, when they come in contact with the vapors in the atmosphere, they form the acids, and these acids are going to get precipitated in the form of acid rain. And you know how acid rain impacts the all forms of life on the earth. Now let us look at lichens. You should know they are the bioindicators for air pollution, especially sulfur dioxide pollution. Due to sulfur dioxide pollution, lichens will start disappearing from the earth. So because of sulfur dioxide production, these lichens will start disappearing. Therefore, in case if the lichens disappear in an area, it is indicating that atmospheric pollution by sulfur dioxide. Now, smog is a mixture of smoke and fog which arise from factories, oil refineries, chemical plants, etc. In bright sunlight, nitrogen oxides, hydrocarbons, and oxygen interact chemically form secondary pollutants like ozone and peroxyacetyl nitrate, which leads to formation of photochemical smog. Now, what are the ways we can control the air pollution? The air pollutants must be separated or filtered out before releasing the harmless gases into the atmosphere. One would be by electrostatic precipitator. It is the most commonly used method for the removal of particulate matter. About 99% of particulate matter are removed from the exhaust of thermal power plants. The electrode wires in the electrostatic precipitator will produce a corona which relieves electrons. These electrons attach to the dust particles and collecting plate attracts the charged dust particle. Now a scrubber can remove gases like sulfur dioxide from the industrial exhaust. Exhaust is passed through water or lime which reacts with sulfur dioxide to form a precipitate. And using catalytic converter, as smoke passes through the catalytic converter, unburnt hydrocarbons are converted into carbon dioxide and water. Carbon monoxide and nitric oxide is changed into carbon dioxide and nitrogen respectively. Vehicles that are fitted with catalytic converters should use only unleaded petrol, as leaded petrol inactivity catalyst present in it as platinum, palladium and rhodium will get damaged. Now, if you look at the examples, in the pollution levels in Delhi were very high. So they adopted the following steps to bring down the pollution by switching over to public transport from diesel to CNG from 2002. They phased out the old vehicles. They started using catalytic converters in the vehicles and Euro 2 norms were applied. Now let us look to water pollution. So what are the different water pollutants? You see, that is wastewater, which could be from the house, commercial and industrial areas that can cause a lot of pollution. And you might have seen in some of the areas where water gets collected and gets stagnated, it will be getting a stench of foul smell. The water in some of the water bodies are so badly polluted. For example, if you look in Bangalore, there is a lake where water is so much polluted that you can see surf coming out of the water as though it is like a big soap bubbles or soap is being discharged. That is the kind of pollution you see in the water bodies. Now let us look at the water pollutants: wastewater, industrial waste, chemical and metallurgical industrial waste, waste from pharmaceutical industry, soap and detergent industry, food processing industry, agricultural resources, thermal pollution, that is when hot waters are getting released into the water body, that also results in pollution. Underground water pollution, so the harmful substances can go down into the water aquifers and then contaminate the groundwater, and also the marine pollution. Now what are the effects of water pollution? So serious thing was Minamata disease, which was due to mercury poisoning, and it was first observed in Minamata city, Japan, in 1953, when more than 100 persons died or suffered serious nervous damage from eating fish taken from Minamata Bay. Then only they analyzed it, they realized it was due to mercury contamination. Cadmium poisoning is the cause of Itai disease in Japan. That is also called ouch ouch disease, and this disease is characterized by bone softening. Excess of nitrate with hemoglobin forms a non-inhibits oxygen transport, and it is known as methaglobinemia or blue baby syndrome. Fluorides, skeletal fluorosis is caused by excess of amount of fluoride in the drinking water. Now, these are some of the harmful effects of water pollution. Now, let us look at Now, two terms you have to know is biochemical oxygen demand or biological oxygen demand and chemical oxygen demand. So biological oxygen demand is the amount of oxygen used for biochemical oxidation by microorganisms in a unit volume of water. Higher BOD. Chemical oxygen demand, it indicates total oxygen requirement of all the oxygen consuming pollutant materials present in the water. So the oxygen that is required by the pollutants, that is what is known as chemical oxygen demand. Its value will be higher than BOD. Both BOD and COD are used in the measurement of polluted water. Now the next part we have to learn is about the soil pollution. It is the alteration in the soil caused by removal or addition of substances and factors which decreases its productivity, quality of plants and groundwater. Now, three types of soil pollutants can be found in nature. Pollutants that are washed out of the atmosphere when they come in contact with it may pollute the soil. Pesticides, insecticides, and biocides sprayed over the crops may find their way along with water to the soil. Nitrogenous fertilizers mixed with soil to increase its productivity may sometimes have negative effect on the soil. So soil gets polluted in all these three ways. And one of the major pollution problem in large cities is disposal of plastics because plastic articles are non-biodegradable. Overgrading is an example of negative pollution in which desirable substances or plants are removed. Excessive use of fertilizers, biocides, etc. cause positive pollution. Abundance of these substances cause reduction in soil fertility. Now let us look at some of the other terms. The next term you have to know about is the greenhouse effect and global warming. So greenhouse effect, it is naturally occurring phenomenon. You should realize that greenhouse effect is not actually an outcome of a pollution, but it is a natural phenomenon that is responsible for heating of Earth's surface and atmosphere. Without greenhouse effect, the average temperature of the Earth's surface would have been gone to minus 18 degrees Celsius than the present average of 15 degrees Celsius. And main gases that are responsible for greenhouse gas are carbon dioxide, methane, CFCs or chlorofluorocarbons, and nitrous oxide nitrogen dioxide contribution. It is selectively energy absorption by carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which allows short wavelength energy to pass through, but it will absorb the larger wavelengths and reflect heat back to Earth. One thing you have to understand is this was happening very normally in the atmosphere, and so we did not feel it. Now, what has happened is the amount of greenhouse gases has gone to such an extent that it is like a blanket covering. The blanket is so thick, all the heat that has to escape out into the space is getting radiated back. Because of its radiating back to the Earth, the global temperature is increasing and Earth is becoming hotter and hotter. So, as a result of which, what is happening? The polar ice caps are melting, and recently I was also looking at the algae are being formed in the polar region. So this is an indication that the permafrost has started melting, as a result of which the water levels in the sea will increase. That will result in flooding. So what are the harmful effects of global warming? Melting of glaciers. Over many years, this will result in rise in sea level. So this was what an ideal situation. We used to say glaciers will melt. Now the glaciers have already started melting, and so we had to face a catastrophe in near future. Now, what are the measures? Minimize the use of fossil fuels, improving efficiency of energy usage, reducing deforestation, and planting more trees. The next problem will be ozone depletion. You know, ozone gas is continuously formed by the action of UV rays on molecular oxygen and also degraded into molecular oxygen in stratosphere. Now, the thickness of ozone layer from the ground to the top of atmosphere is measured in terms of Dobson unit. It blocks the harmful UV rays, and these rays cause skin cancer. They will cause mutations, and they will also cause blindness by damaging the cornea. Chlorofluorocarbons will deplete the ozone layer. The part of the atmosphere with lesser concentration of ozone is called as the ozone hole. So now we have realized that all these days what we were saying, that ozone hole is getting depleted, there is a ozone hole. Now because of this COVID pandemic, the whole world has come to a standstill, as a result of which you find that the earth is healing. We might find that humans are no doubt being troubled by the pandemic, but if you look very positively of this COVID pandemic, we see that earth is getting he's getting healed up, and she is able to again take care of us for another 100 years. So once in 100 years there will be a pandemic where the entire world comes to a standstill. After that, during that time, earth will rejuvenate, and then for 100 years you will not have such kind of issues. That is what the trends we have seen. So now let us look at auto fuel policy. So we have already discussed about how air pollution has been controlled, and these are the concepts you have to learn. So they will not ask more from the textbook, but most from the recent happenings that you have to be aware. That is why I suggest you keep a tab on the environmental issues, and if you come across, just don't read and leave it. Just make a small note of it so that it becomes easier for you to revise. There are some questions that could be asked as trivia, as I said, and that will be one. So questions from this chapter will be like that. So this completes the unit. Now let us go back to the tests. Planning and coordination was set up by Indian Ministry in the year 1972. See, all these kinds of dates are very important. These are not available in your textbooks, but they have asked. So these questions become the game changers. You have to make a note of all these things. Endangered plant species get conserved through gene banks. A water body has high BOD, indicating that it is being contaminated with sewage. MAB stands for Man and Biosphere. The term biocenosis was proposed by Carl Moebius. See, all these scientists who have contributed, all these things you had to make a note. In India, red list of plant species is prepared by Botanical Survey of India. Diversity of habitats over total geographical area is what we call it as gamma diversity. Blue whale is placed under endangered. Minamata disease was caused by pollution of water by mercury. Cement factory laborers are prone to cytosilicosis. World Wildlife Week is on in the first week of October. Lead is considered primarily a air pollutant. Sin ecology is defined as ecological studies of community. Autoecology, that is of individuals. Genetically indistinct individuals of a species showing a temporary morphological differences due to effects of environment are known as ICADs. So let us save this, end the test. So all our answers are correct. If any question is incorrect, then you will be able to see it as a red colored one. If you click on it, you will come to know your answer and also the correct answer. And if you want to, if you have not attempted any question, that will be shown in an orange yellow tail. So you just go and click it, you will come to know the answer along with the explanation. One thing you have to understand this, you are giving a it's a entrance exam wherein there will be negative corrections. So it is better if you do not know the answer, do not tick it. It's better you leave it, otherwise you will be losing -1 from your total score. So this comes today we are coming to an end to this day's class. Now, if you look at our NEET package, so if you look at our NEET package, it has got 38 full tests, out of which 15 are created by taking into consideration the different kinds of questions that can be in the exams, and the level of complexity is also quite high, so that it will thoroughly help you to prepare for your entrance exams. And there are 20 or more past papers too. As I said, many questions can come even from your past papers directly with or without any modifications. So you can make an attempt of and learn all the past question papers thoroughly, and along with the explanations, they have all been solved, so that you can really gear up for the entrance examination. And you can get additional help by using our ask feature. And also we support chat group using Telegram. If you want to know, learn something or a particular chapter in a particular subject, you can also book one-to-one teaching with the tutors. For any queries, you can mail your query to info@place6.com. So thank you, children. Meet you all tomorrow. Have a nice day.